Imagine walking into a room without saying a single word, yet somehow every conversation slows down. People glance in your direction. Some become curious. Some become uncomfortable. A few even feel intimidated. Not because you're the loudest person in the room. Not because you're physically stronger. Not because you're trying to impress anyone. But because there's something about you that refuses to ask for permission to exist. Now let me ask you something. Have you ever met someone like that? Someone who speaks very little, yet everyone listens. Someone who never chases attention, yet attention somehow follows them. Someone who doesn't try to prove they're important, yet everyone instinctively treats them as if they are. Most people call this confidence. Psychology calls it something much deeper, because what you're about to discover has very little to do with positive thinking, motivational speeches, or repeating affirmations in front of a mirror. In fact, one of the biggest lies modern society has sold us is that confidence comes from feeling good about yourself. It doesn't. If confidence depended on feeling good, then every successful person would wake up every morning completely fearless. But they don't. Elite athletes still feel nervous before championships. Experienced surgeons still feel pressure before difficult operations. CEOs still doubt themselves before billion-dollar decisions. Even the world's greatest performers experience anxiety. So what separates them from everyone else? They don't eliminate fear. They eliminate fear's authority. That single distinction changes everything, because confidence has never been the absence of fear. Confidence is what happens when fear is no longer making your decisions. Most people spend their entire lives trying to become fearless. Psychologically powerful people spend their lives becoming fearless enough to act. There's a massive difference. Think about the last time you wanted to say something during a meeting. You knew the answer. You had the idea. You even rehearsed it inside your mind. But then another voice appeared. What if they think it's stupid? What if I embarrass myself? What if someone disagrees? Within seconds, silence won. Not because you lacked intelligence, because another force quietly took control. Fear of social judgment. And here's the uncomfortable truth. The human brain treats social rejection almost like physical pain. Neuroscientists have discovered that many of the same brain regions involved in processing physical pain also become active during experiences of social exclusion. Thousands of years ago, this made perfect sense. Being rejected by your tribe could mean losing protection, food, and ultimately your chance of survival. Your brain evolved to fear exclusion, because exclusion once meant death. Today, being ignored on social media isn't life-threatening. Disagreeing with a coworker won't leave you alone in the wilderness. Making a mistake during a presentation isn't going to end your life. Yet your nervous system often reacts as though it will. That's why your heart races before speaking. That's why your hands sweat before introducing yourself. That's why criticism sometimes feels so devastating. Your biology is ancient. Your environment is modern. Most people never realize they're allowing a survival system designed for prehistoric tribes to control decisions inside today's world. This creates one of the greatest paradoxes of human psychology. The more desperately you seek acceptance, the less confident you appear. The less confident you appear, the less respect you often receive. And the less respect you receive, the more desperately you chase approval. Without realizing it, you've entered a psychological loop, a loop millions of people never escape. Everything they do becomes filtered through one invisible question. What will people think? They choose careers because of it. They stay in unhealthy relationships because of it. They remain silent because of it. They dress according to it. They suppress their opinions because of it. Eventually, they stop living their own lives. They begin performing one. Now imagine the opposite. Imagine someone who certainly appreciates respect, but doesn't depend on it. Someone who enjoys praise, but doesn't require it. Someone who can hear criticism without immediately questioning their worth. How would that person walk? How would they speak? How would they make decisions? Most importantly, how would they make you feel? Here's something fascinating. Human beings constantly scan one another for emotional stability. We rarely notice ourselves doing it. Within seconds of meeting someone, your brain begins asking silent questions. Is this person comfortable with themselves? Do they need my approval? Are they emotionally predictable? Can they be easily influenced? This process happens beneath conscious awareness. Long before you've evaluated someone's intelligence, you've already formed an impression about their emotional strength. That's why two people can say exactly the same sentence, yet receive completely different reactions. One sounds uncertain. The other sounds authoritative. The words aren't creating the difference. The emotional state behind the words is. This is why confidence cannot be faked for long. You can memorize powerful phrases. You can imitate body language. You can lower your voice. You can practice smiling. But eventually, your nervous system tells the truth. Real confidence isn't something people hear. It's something they feel. Think about the most respected teacher you've ever had. Or perhaps a grandparent whose presence immediately made everyone calmer. Maybe a leader who never needed to remind people they were in charge. What made them different? It wasn't volume. It wasn't aggression. It wasn't dominance. It was certainty. Not certainty that they were always right. Certainty that their worth wasn't determined by other people's immediate opinions. That is the foundation of genuine confidence. And it's also the quality that quietly intimidates people who rely on manipulation. Because manipulation requires emotional dependence. If someone can make you doubt yourself, they gain influence. If someone can make you chase their approval, they gain leverage. If someone can make you constantly explain your choices, they quietly begin directing your emotional world. What happens when none of those strategies work anymore? What happens when you meet someone who remains calm, who doesn't argue to prove their value, who doesn't panic under criticism, who doesn't desperately seek acceptance, who simply knows who they are? Something fascinating happens inside the observer's mind. For a brief moment, their usual psychological strategies stop working. And whenever people encounter something they cannot easily influence, they often mistake it for intimidation. This is why authentic confidence sometimes terrifies insecure people. Not because confidence is aggressive, but because it exposes insecurity without saying a single word. Most people believe confidence is about becoming more impressive. Psychology suggests something almost completely opposite. The most confident people are often those who stopped trying to impress anyone. And once you truly understand why, you'll never look at confidence the same way again. Because what we're about to uncover isn't about acting powerful. It's about understanding the hidden psychological forces that have quietly controlled your real behavior for years without your permission. And the first one may be the most dangerous of them all. The first psychological force that silently destroys confidence is something almost everyone mistakes for maturity. It is called approval dependence. Most people don't recognize it because society rewards it from childhood. Think back to your earliest memories. When you behaved the way adults wanted, you were praised. When you followed instructions, you received approval. When you achieved good grades, people smiled. When you stayed quiet, you were called respectful. None of these things are inherently wrong. The problem begins when your brain unconsciously reaches a dangerous conclusion. My value depends on other people's approval. That belief quietly follows people into adulthood. Now the classroom has become the workplace. Your parents have become your manager. Your classmates have become social media followers. Your report card has become likes, promotions, compliments, and validation. The environment changed. Psychology didn't. This is why so many intelligent people struggle with confidence despite extraordinary accomplishments. You keep chasing another emotional report card, another compliment, another achievement, another promotion, believing that the next accomplishment will finally make them feel enough. But something strange happens. It never lasts. Promotion feels exciting for a few weeks. A new car feels satisfying until someone buys a better one. The expensive watch impresses people until it becomes ordinary. Psychologists call this hedonic adaptation. Human beings quickly become accustomed to improvements, causing external rewards to lose their emotional impact over time. This explains why confidence built on external success is remarkably fragile. If your confidence comes from money, someone richer can threaten it. If it comes from appearance, time eventually challenges it. If it comes from popularity, public opinion eventually changes. If it comes from intelligence, someone smarter eventually appears. External confidence always has an expiration date. Internal confidence doesn't. This is where most people begin asking the wrong question. How do I become more confident? Perhaps the better question is, what have I unknowingly allowed to control my confidence? Because confidence is rarely something you add. More often, it's something you uncover after removing everything that has been suppressing it. Imagine an eagle raised inside a small cage. For years it believes flying is impossible. Not because its wings are weak, because its environment convinced it they were unnecessary. Then one day, the cage disappears. The eagle doesn't fly. It has become psychologically conditioned. Millions of people experience something similar. Their abilities were never the real limitation. Their conditioning was. Behavioral psychologists have spent decades studying learned behavior. One of the most fascinating discoveries is that repeated experiences create expectations. If someone repeatedly experiences criticism after expressing themselves, eventually they begin expecting criticism everywhere. If someone repeatedly experiences rejection, they begin expecting rejection before it happens. The expectation itself begins shaping behavior. This is why confidence cannot develop without challenging old conditioning. Suppose a young professional enters every meeting believing, "My ideas probably aren't good enough." Notice what happens. They speak quietly. They hesitate. They apologize before sharing an opinion. They avoid eye contact. Other people unconsciously interpret these signals as uncertainty. Ironically, they respond with less confidence in that person's ideas. The individual's original belief appears confirmed. Was it ever objectively true? Or did the expectation create the outcome? Psychologists often describe this as a self-fulfilling prophecy. Your beliefs influence your behavior. Your behavior influences other people's reactions. Their reactions strengthen your original belief. The cycle repeats. Now imagine the opposite. Not arrogance, not pretending to know everything. Simply someone who believes, "My perspective deserves to be heard." Immediately, their posture changes. Their breathing changes. Their voice slows. They become comfortable with pauses. They don't rush through sentences. They don't apologize for taking up space. They don't immediately change their opinion because someone raises an eyebrow. People notice, not because confidence magically attracts attention, but because emotional certainty is surprisingly rare. Have you ever wondered why some individuals become the unofficial leaders inside groups, without anyone assigning them the role? It isn't always because they're the smartest, or the funniest, or the wealthiest. It is often because they communicate emotional certainty. Human beings naturally seek stability during uncertainty. In chaotic environments, people instinctively gravitate toward whoever appears emotionally grounded. This explains why confidence can become contagious. When one person remains calm during uncertainty, others unconsciously begin regulating their own emotions. Think about an airplane experiencing turbulence. Passengers immediately look toward the flight attendants. Why? Not because the attendants control the weather, because they monitor emotional cues. If the crew remains composed, passengers relax. If the crew panics, everyone panics. Confidence communicates safety. Safety creates trust. Trust creates influence. Influence creates leadership. Notice the order. Leadership doesn't create confidence. Confidence creates leadership. Unfortunately, many people reverse the sequence. They believe they'll become confident after receiving authority, after becoming successful, after becoming attractive, after becoming wealthy, after becoming respected. Yet history repeatedly tells a different story. Many remarkable individuals possessed confidence long before the world acknowledged them, because genuine confidence begins as an internal decision, not an external reward. This brings us to another psychological trap: comparison. Perhaps no habit destroys confidence more quietly than constantly measuring your life against someone else's highlight reel. The human brain evolved to compare. In ancient environments, comparison helped determine social standing and access to resources. Today, comparison has become limitless. Every morning, millions of people compare themselves with celebrities, entrepreneurs, athletes, influencers, friends, complete strangers. Within minutes, their self-worth begins shrinking. The irony is almost tragic. You're comparing your private struggles to someone else's carefully edited public image. No comparison can ever be fair under those conditions. Psychology calls this social comparison theory. We naturally evaluate ourselves by comparing ourselves with others. But when comparison becomes constant, confidence slowly disappears. Why? Because there will always be someone richer, smarter, younger, more experienced, more attractive, more successful. If your confidence depends on being superior to everyone else, you will spend your life afraid of competition, afraid of younger talent, afraid of criticism, afraid of failure. True confidence doesn't compete with everyone. It competes with yesterday's version of yourself. That mindset creates remarkable freedom. Instead of asking, "Am I better than them?" you begin asking, "Am I becoming better than I was?" That single shift changes everything. Because one question creates insecurity, the other creates growth. And growth, unlike comparison, has no limit. There is another secret that separates truly confident people from those who merely appear confident. It has nothing to do with charisma, and nothing to do with appearance, nothing to do with talent. It has everything to do with emotional self-control. Most people believe confidence is something other people can see. Psychology suggests confidence begins with something only you can feel. Your relationship with discomfort. Think about the average day. Someone ignores your message. Immediately, your mind begins inventing stories. They're upset with me. I must have said something wrong. I should text again. Someone disagrees with your opinion. You instantly begin explaining yourself. Your heart beats faster. Your breathing becomes shallow. Your mind searches desperately for evidence to prove you're right. Someone criticizes your work. Instead of objectively evaluating the feedback, you spend hours replaying the conversation inside your mind. Notice what all these situations have in common. Nothing physically dangerous happened. The only thing under attack was your emotional comfort. Yet your nervous system reacted as though your survival depended on fixing the situation immediately. This is where psychologically powerful people begin to separate themselves. They become comfortable experiencing temporary emotional discomfort. That single ability changes almost every area of life. Imagine two entrepreneurs launching identical businesses. First, fears rejection. Every no feels personal. Every criticism feels like proof they aren't capable. Within months, they stop taking risks. The second entrepreneur experiences the same rejection, the same criticism, the same setbacks. But instead of asking, "What does this say about me?" they ask, "What can this teach me?" The circumstances are identical. The interpretation is completely different. Psychologists often describe this as cognitive appraisal. It isn't always the event that determines your emotional response. It's the meaning your mind assigns to that event. This explains why two people can experience the same failure. One becomes stronger, the other becomes discouraged. One sees evidence of growth, the other sees evidence of inadequacy. Confidence begins changing the moment your interpretation changes. Consider a child learning to walk. The child falls again and again and again, yet the child never concludes, "I guess walking just isn't for me." Failure isn't interpreted as identity. It's interpreted as learning. Somewhere along the way, many adults lose that perspective. Failure becomes embarrassment. Mistakes become shame. Criticism becomes personal. The result is predictable. People stop taking risks, and without risk, confidence slowly begins disappearing. Here's why. Confidence is built through evidence, not imagination. Every time you do something difficult despite uncertainty, your brain records a powerful message. I survived. Every difficult conversation, every presentation, every interview, every honest boundary, every courageous decision becomes another piece of evidence. evidence eventually becomes belief. Belief becomes identity. Identity becomes confidence. That's why waiting until you feel confident rarely works. Feelings follow action far more often than action follows feelings. Elite soldiers don't wait until fear disappears before entering dangerous situations. Experienced firefighters don't wait until anxiety disappears before entering burning buildings. Professional athletes don't wait until doubt disappears before stepping onto the field. Action teaches the nervous system something incredibly important. Fear does not always predict danger. Many people unknowingly train the opposite lesson. Every time fear appears, they avoid. Avoid speaking. Avoid asking. Avoid applying. Avoid leading. Avoid confronting. Immediately, anxiety decreases. Their brain experiences relief. Behavioral psychology calls this negative reinforcement. Avoidance temporarily removes discomfort. Because relief feels rewarding, avoidance becomes more likely the next time. Months later, years later, life becomes smaller. Not because opportunities disappeared, because avoidance quietly built invisible walls around them. This is why confidence is not created by comfort. It is created by repeatedly proving to yourself that discomfort is survivable. Now think about the people who seem impossible to intimidate. Have you noticed they rarely react impulsively? Someone insults them, they pause. Someone challenges them, they think. Someone disagrees, they listen. Not because they're weak, because emotional reactions are expensive. Every unnecessary reaction costs attention. Every unnecessary reaction costs peace. Every unnecessary reaction costs influence. Confident people understand something most never realize. Attention is your most valuable psychological currency. Where you invest it determines who you become. Spend it chasing approval, you'll become approval dependent. Spend it chasing revenge, you'll become consumed by resentment. Spend it chasing comparison, you'll never feel enough. Spend it chasing purpose. Everything changes. One of the most fascinating findings in psychology is that people naturally assign higher status to individuals who appear emotionally independent. Notice the wording, emotionally independent, not emotionally distant. Those are completely different things. An emotionally distant person disconnects from others. An emotionally independent person connects without becoming controlled. They enjoy compliments without depending on them. They appreciate love without losing themselves inside it. They welcome friendship without fearing solitude. This balance creates extraordinary presence because people instinctively recognize when someone isn't secretly asking for something. Many conversations contain hidden transactions. I'll compliment you if you compliment me. I'll respect you if you approve of me. I'll support you as long as you validate my choices. Confident individuals quietly step outside these invisible negotiations. Their kindness is genuine, not strategic. Their respect is sincere, not conditional. Their generosity comes from abundance, not from a desperate attempt to earn acceptance. Ironically, this often earns them even more respect, because authenticity is remarkably difficult to fake. Human beings possess an extraordinary ability to detect emotional incongruence. Someone may smile, while their body communicates anxiety. Someone may speak confidently, while their voice reveals uncertainty. Someone may claim not to care, while desperately seeking attention. Eventually, behavior always exposes what words attempt to hide. That's why authentic confidence isn't an act. It's alignment. Alignment between what you believe, what you say, and how you behave. When those three become consistent, people begin trusting you. More importantly, you begin trusting yourself. And there is no stronger foundation upon which confidence can ever be built. Because the moment you no longer need to convince yourself, you stop trying so hard to convince everyone else. And that is when confidence transforms from something you perform into something you simply become. Yet there is one final psychological shift that separates ordinary confidence from the kind of quiet presence that people never forget. It has nothing to do with speaking and everything to do with silence. Because sometimes, the most powerful thing you can communicate is absolutely nothing at all. Silence is one of the most misunderstood forms of communication. Most people assume that influence belongs to the person who speaks the most. Psychology repeatedly demonstrates something very different. Influence often belongs to the person who is least controlled by the need to speak. Think about the most intense negotiation you've ever witnessed. Eventually, one side becomes uncomfortable with the silence. Unable to tolerate the uncertainty, they begin talking. They reveal more information than necessary. They justify their position. They lower their demands. They negotiate against themselves. Silence didn't force them to speak. Their discomfort did. That same principle operates in everyday life. Imagine you're in a meeting. You present an idea. Someone immediately challenges it. Most people react within seconds. They defend every detail. They explain every decision. They begin speaking faster and faster, hoping more words will produce more certainty. Instead, something unexpected happens. The room becomes less convinced, not because their idea was weak, because urgency often signals insecurity. Now imagine another scenario. Someone questions your proposal. You pause, not to create drama, not to appear mysterious, simply because you're thinking. You consider the criticism carefully. Then you calmly respond. That's an interesting point. Let's examine the evidence. Only one sentence. No emotional reaction. No defensive posture. No rush to prove your intelligence. Immediately the atmosphere changes. Why? Because emotional regulation creates psychological authority. Pause itself communicates confidence, tells everyone watching that your thoughts are not controlled by the emotions of the moment. This is one reason judges speak slowly. Experienced physicians explain diagnoses calmly. Military commanders train themselves to reduce panic before making decisions. The slower response is not a sign of hesitation. It is often a sign of mastery. Your brain is constantly broadcasting information that words never communicate. Your breathing, your facial expressions, your posture, your eye contact, your ability to remain comfortable during uncertainty. Researchers studying nonverbal communication have shown that people often form impressions from these cues before they consciously evaluate what someone is saying. While words matter, emotional composure strongly influences how those words are received. That is why confidence is felt before it is heard. Imagine entering a room where everyone is trying to impress everyone else. People interrupt. They laugh louder than necessary. They tell stories designed to increase their status. They constantly search for opportunities to mention achievements. Now imagine one person who simply listens. Not because they have nothing to say, because they don't need every conversation to become a performance. Ironically, that person often becomes the most memorable. Why? Scarcity creates value. When words become scarce, people begin paying closer attention. This principle appears everywhere in psychology. Things that are constantly available lose perceived value. Things that are selective become more valuable. This doesn't mean speaking less to manipulate people. It means speaking with intention. Every unnecessary sentence weakens the impact of the necessary ones. The same principle applies emotionally. Every unnecessary reaction reduces the power of your genuine reactions. If everything frustrates you, nothing appears important. If every disagreement becomes an argument, people stop taking your emotions seriously. But if you remain composed most of the time, the rare moments when you firmly speak carry tremendous weight. Consistency creates credibility. One of the greatest misconceptions about confidence is that confident people always know exactly what to say. In reality, they are simply comfortable not having immediate answers. Most people panic when they don't know something. They begin guessing, talking, explaining, filling the silence. Psychologically secure people often respond differently. I don't know. I'll think about it. I need more information. Surprisingly, these responses usually increase credibility instead of reducing it. Because certainty without evidence appears arrogant, thoughtful uncertainty appears intelligent. There is another powerful lesson hidden inside silence. Silence prevents emotional escalation. Think about the last heated argument you witnessed. One insult created another. One accusation produced another. One interruption invited another. Within minutes, neither person remembered how the argument even began. Emotion replaced logic. This happens because emotional states are contagious. Anger spreads. Fear spreads. Anxiety spreads. But calmness spreads too. Someone has to interrupt the emotional chain. Usually, that begins with silence. Not silence that avoids responsibility. Silence that creates space for wisdom. Space allows the logical regions of the brain to regain influence. Space reduces impulsive reactions. Space prevents words that cannot be taken back. One sentence spoken in anger can damage years of trust. 1 minute of thoughtful silence can prevent it entirely. Emotionally intelligent people understand this. They don't fear silence. They use it to regain perspective. There is another reason silence makes some people uncomfortable. Silence forces people to confront themselves. When constant conversation disappears, thoughts become louder. Insecurity becomes noticeable. Many people speak not because they have something important to say, but because silence exposes emotions they would rather avoid. This explains why confidence is deeply connected to solitude. Can you enjoy your own company? Can you sit alone without immediately reaching for your phone? Can you spend an evening without external stimulation? Can you remain comfortable without constant reassurance? These questions may seem unrelated to confidence. They are directly connected. Someone who fears being alone often fears being alone with their own thoughts. Someone who becomes comfortable with solitude develops something remarkably valuable, an internal source of stability. They discover they are capable of generating peace without depending upon external distraction. That internal stability becomes visible everywhere else. Relationships become healthier because they no longer cling. Leadership becomes stronger because they no longer seek constant approval. Friendships become more genuine because they no longer fear temporary distance. Business decisions improve because they no longer confuse urgency with importance. Silence teaches patience. Patience improves judgment. Judgment strengthens confidence. Confidence increases influence. Everything is connected. Perhaps that is why the strongest people you see rarely seem desperate to prove they were strong. They simply lived in a way that made explanation unnecessary. They allowed consistency to speak. They allowed integrity to speak. They allowed character to speak. Over time, those quiet voices became louder than any speech ever could. Because confidence is not measured by how much attention you demand. It is measured by how little attention you require to remain certain of who you are. And once you truly understand that, you begin realizing that the strongest presence in any room is rarely the loudest one. It is the person who has mastered something infinitely more difficult, themselves. But confidence has one final test. It isn't measured when life is easy. It is measured by what you become when life deliberately tries to break you. That is where confidence stops being a personality trait and becomes a way of living. Life has a way of revealing whether your confidence is genuine or merely borrowed. It doesn't happen during moments of success. It happens when everything you've worked for seems to fall apart. Almost everyone feels confident when they're receiving praise, when promotions are coming, when relationships are thriving, when people are applauding. But what happens when the applause stops? What happens when your closest friend misunderstands you, when your business struggles, when your relationship ends, when someone publicly criticizes your character, when you fail despite giving everything you had? That is the moment confidence is tested. Not because failure destroys confidence, but because failure exposes the foundation upon which it was built. If your confidence depended on winning, failure feels like identity. If your confidence depended on being admired, criticism feels unbearable. If your confidence depended on always being right, mistakes become humiliating. If your confidence was built upon character, none of those experiences can permanently take it away. They may hurt, they may disappoint you, they may force you to grow, but they cannot define you. There is a remarkable psychological shift that occurs when people stop asking, "What if I fail?" and begin asking, "What kind of person do I want to become?" regardless of the outcome. Notice how different those questions are. One is controlled by fear, The other is guided by purpose. Purpose creates resilience because it survives temporary defeat. Imagine a mountain climber. Every step upward requires effort. Sometimes the weather changes unexpectedly. Sometimes the path disappears beneath snow. Sometimes progress becomes painfully slow. Yet the climber continues. Not because each step feels exciting, because the destination remains meaningful. Confidence works exactly the same way. It isn't sustained by emotion. It is sustained by direction. People who know exactly why they're moving forward rarely become trapped by temporary setbacks. They may pause, they may recover, they may change their strategy, but they don't abandon themselves. This is where confidence begins transforming into identity. Identity answers a different question. Not, what do I have? But, who am I becoming? The first question depends on circumstances. The second depends on choices. Every morning, whether you realize it or not, you vote for your future identity. When you keep a promise to yourself, you cast a vote. When you choose discipline instead of comfort, you cast another. When you speak honestly despite discomfort, another vote. When you protect your boundaries with respect, another vote. No single decision changes your life overnight, but thousands of decisions quietly reshape your identity. Eventually you stop saying, I'm trying to become confident. Instead, confidence becomes the natural result of repeatedly behaving like someone who trusts themselves. This explains why self-respect is more important than self-esteem. Self-esteem often rises and falls depending on success. Self-respect comes from living according to your principles. You can lose money and keep your self-respect. You can lose status and keep your self-respect. You can lose popularity and keep your self-respect, as long as you refuse to betray your deepest values. That is why psychologically strong people recover faster from adversity. They lose circumstances. They don't lose themselves. There is another lesson adversity quietly teaches. It reveals relationships. Some people celebrate your victories. Others celebrate your failures. Some encourage your growth. Others become uncomfortable the moment you stop seeking their approval. This realization can be painful, but it is incredibly valuable. Confidence naturally changes relationships because confident people stop participating in unhealthy emotional patterns. They no longer apologize for having boundaries. They no longer shrink themselves to protect fragile egos. They no longer confuse people-pleasing with kindness. Some relationships become stronger because of this. Others quietly fade away. That isn't necessarily loss. Sometimes it's evidence that the relationship depended more on your insecurity than your authenticity. Healthy relationships adapt when people grow. Unhealthy relationships resist growth because growth changes the balance of control. Think about someone who has spent years constantly seeking approval. The moment they begin saying no respectfully, certain people become uncomfortable. Not because no is offensive, because access has changed. The same transformation happens inside the workplace. Employees who quietly develop confidence stop over-explaining every decision. They stop apologizing for respectful disagreement. They contribute ideas without fearing every possible criticism. Gradually, colleagues begin responding differently. Not because confidence demands respect, because confidence communicates reliability. People naturally trust individuals who trust themselves. There is no shortcut around this. You cannot fake self-trust. It develops only through repeated integrity. Integrity means your private behavior matches your public image. It means doing the right thing even when there is no audience. It means honoring commitments that only you know about. Because every time you betray yourself in private, your unconscious mind remembers. Likewise, every time you remain true to your principles, your unconscious mind remembers that too. Confidence is built in those invisible moments. The workout nobody applauds. The difficult conversation nobody records. The temptation you quietly resist. The promise you keep even when breaking it would be easier. Those moments become the architecture of your character. People eventually notice the building. They rarely see the bricks. Perhaps that is why genuine confidence appears effortless. What people see is calmness. They don't see years of self-discipline. They see composure. They don't see countless moments of choosing courage over comfort. They see certainty. They don't see the thousands of private battles already won. Every confident person you admire carries a history that the world never witnessed. A history of doubt, failure, embarrassment, loneliness, persistence, growth. Their confidence is not proof they avoided struggle. It is evidence they refuse to let struggle define them. That realization should encourage you, because it means confidence is not reserved for a gifted few. It is available to anyone willing to consistently build it. One courageous choice at a time. One honest conversation at a time. One difficult decision at a time. One promise kept at a time. Eventually, something extraordinary happens. People stop noticing only what you accomplish. They begin noticing who you are. Your presence becomes calming. Your words carry weight. Your decisions become trusted. Not because you demanded respect, but because you became someone whose character quietly earned it. And that is the highest form of confidence any human being can possess. Not the confidence that seeks to appear powerful, but the confidence that no longer needs to prove it. Because true confidence has never been about terrifying people. It only seems intimidating to those who are controlled by fear, approval, and insecurity. To emotionally healthy people, true confidence doesn't create fear. It creates trust. It creates safety. It creates inspiration. So the real goal was never to become someone others fear. The real goal is to become someone whose peace cannot be shaken by praise, criticism, success, failure, acceptance, or rejection. Because the moment your identity is no longer held hostage by the opinions of the world, you become genuinely free. And freedom is the highest expression of confidence. If this video challenged the way you think about confidence, self-mastery, and the hidden psychology behind human behavior, then you're exactly where you belong. Subscribe to Gray Smoke Psychology, where we explore the unseen forces that shape our relationships, emotions, decisions, and everyday interactions. Together, we'll continue uncovering the psychology behind influence, resilience, emotional intelligence, and the quiet strength that changes lives from the inside out. And remember this, the most intimidating person in any room is rarely the loudest, it's the one who has nothing left to prove.